Test. All right. So after a day of going to the local game shop, a meeting with a good friend, and solving impossible Sherlock Holmes board game mysteries, let's have some fun taking a look at some Jinteki games on Netrunner tonight. We'll probably do this as long as my voice holds out. So no promises on how long I'll be able to keep this up. I'm going to try to talk a little softer than I normally do to help. As always, if you don't like that some totally random person online is spectating and commenting on your games, let me know. If you happen to see this, I'll add your name to a list and try to avoid your games in the future. Otherwise, let's take a look at our first game for the night. We have Ayla versus Wayland Earth Station. Earth Station is pretty cool, since it wants to try to build one super server. It plays a game similar to the Chrysium grid concept, where it forces the runner to have to hit HQ first before they can hit the remote. At least I think I'm getting Chrysium grid correctly there. Let's take a look before I say something stupid. It's been a little while since I've seen Chrysium grid used like relevantly in a game. Successful runs against the server not considered to be successful or unsuccessful for the purposes of card abilities, yeah. So it's not that it forces the runner to run HQ, but it forces... I think the reason I think that is because I'm used to back in the day when people used to use diversion of funds. That was the old one, right? Diversion of funds. Or is that the new one? No. Diversion of funds is the new one. What was the old one called? Something account? Account siphon? Yeah. People used to use Chrysium grid to force double runs on HQ so that you couldn't get account siphoned. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Let's focus on the game at hand. We have a score of hostile takeover. Gonna give the corp a bit of money right off the bat, in addition to the giving the runner one bad pub. The artist has hit the table pretty early for Ayla. We're in turn 2. Ayla gonna get a lot of value off the artist there as the game progresses. A run on R&D reveals an Aket, but there are only 2 advancement tokens. No, 1 advancement token on Aket right now. So both servers are not live, or both subroutines are not unbreakable. Wow, you can tell it's late. Let me try that one more time. You can still break both subroutines. That point is moot, though, however, as it passes back over to Wayland, who double advances Aket, now making it so that only 1 subroutine can be broken on it. They also click for a credit for their last click. That was after Ayla here bounced and dropped a Rozeki and a Unity. Passing the turn back over to Ayla, we're going to see her drop a Super Corridor, which is going to let her draw cards, I believe, when your turn ends if you and the corp have the same number of... No, it's credits. Super Corridor is credits. Anacam is draw cards. That's interesting. Plus you have +1 max hand size. So it's kind of neat when you think about that. You either take advantage of the max hand size and you have 6 cards in hand, against most corps who are going to have 5 cards in hand. You aren't going to match their hand size then. Or cards in hand, rather. I'm thinking about all this wrong. Wow. No, let's slow down and read this again. When your turn ends, if you and the corp have the same number of credits, you get 2 more credits. It has nothing to do with hand size. I'm thinking of that. Regardless, the Corp actually decides to Jinteki Beanstalk in the form of Jinteki Beanstalk in the form of triple clicking for 3 credits. Isla's probably pretty happy to see that. The Corp is moving a little bit slow. Isla decides to install professional contacts. Probably off of the card she moved from her ID to her hand. Discounting the install of Procon with the artist? What? How did that work? No. She just used the artist to gain 2 credits. And then, of course, Procons for a click and a credit. Or a card and a credit. Corp draws a card in government subsidies up to a nice 19 credit value. Drops a naked card in a new remote. After proconning a couple times, Isla decides to check that on click 3. It ends up being a reversed accounts. She'll go ahead and just pay to trash that. Now, I don't know why she pays to trash this. Oh, that's right, because the Corp activates it. I'm thinking of the one where you access it and it makes you lose money. That makes sense. You might as well pay the 3 credits now, get it off the table. It does bring Isla down to 2 credits, though. Corp drops a piece of ice in front of a new server with a face-down card in it and advances it 1 time. With Isla down to 2 credits, Corp might feel pretty comfortable that they can keep Isla out. Isla decides to run click 1 and hits a Pharaohs, which admittedly only has, I say only, but it's still quite a bit, has 5 strength. It does give Isla a tag. Isla decides to shake the tag, Procons for a card, and uses the artist to gain another 2 credits. Corp double advances the card in server 3 and flips their ID ability. So let's go ahead and read this partly for my sake as well. As an additional cost to run a remote server, the runner must pay 6 credits. When the runner makes a successful run on HQ, flip this identity. So Isla certainly doesn't have 6 credits. Even if she did, she would need to be able to find a way through the barrier breaker. So more than likely, she's going to have to run HQ first and then try for server 3. But the Corp still has 9 credits, probably enough to res whatever's in front of HQ. So it's more than likely that the Corp has earned a scoring window here. And I doubt that Isla's going to be able to get in here into these servers. She can't pay the 6th on top of breaking Pharaohs, and she can't get through both the HQ ice, which certainly can be rezzed, and server 3. Unless it's something crazy. Like, I don't think Wayland even runs anything. Teach me how to run nets, please. Hey, Kyvan. Yeah, maybe if you're still interested in Netrunner, well, you'll definitely learn a lot when we go over all this. Again, we'll see if my voice holds out long enough to keep analyzing the game, but I love analyzing Netrunner games, so hopefully it's not all gibberish, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask. So it looks like Isla took the last card from her ID and added it to hand. Sure Gambles. I wonder if that card on her ID was Sure Gamble. You would kind of think it is, based on how she played that. It's funny though, in spite of having the artist, she still hasn't been able to maintain a relevant credit value until just about now, where she has 11. The Corp did end up scoring the card in server 3. It was send a message, and they're going to go ahead and reveal, it looks like a magnet for free. Not exactly great value. On send a message, you would much rather res something about 5 credits or more. But a free res on magnet is still free, so it's something. They even had to install that, though, the very same turn they scored send a message, which is interesting. In order to make sure they could take advantage of send a message. Kind of indicates, though, that the ice in front of HQ is probably a low-cost ice. In fact, if I was Isla, I would not be terribly afraid of this ice in front of HQ right now. She decides to Maker's Eye into R&D, breaks Magnet using Unity, which is of course going to have the bonus strength from Corroder. Aket can only have one of its subroutines broken. The Corp does get the free advancement token on that, decides to place it on Pharaohs. But Maker's Eye is going to see 2 cards off the top of R&D in additional to the normal access. Hostile Takeover is hit. It looks like on the 3rd card deep. So the top 2 cards are dead. Not really what you want to see as Isla. You want to at least see a 2-pointer. You don't really care that much about Hostile Takeover. I mean, it's nice. It might be the game-winning point at the end of the game, depending on how the agendas line up. Like, if she steals 2 3-pointers, she could still win the game. But, yeah, just in general, probably not the one she was looking for. She decides to drop Clot. She raw installs? Is that how that worked? Yeah. Well, I guess she was using the artist to do it, so she probably wanted to take advantage of the discount from the artist that turn and didn't have anything better to put down. Kind of interesting, though. You usually think of Clot as being something you put out kind of as a surprise. So dropping it early when there's absolutely no agendas on the table gives the Corp all of that information, so they have plenty of time to respond to it. The Corp goes ahead and installs an upgrade on R&D. Double clicks for credits. It goes back over to Isla, who drops a Leech. She's got plenty of MU, though. She has a whole whopping 7 MU. Kayambe Grid is res rather. I'm actually not entirely familiar with Kayambe Grid. When your turn begins, place 1 advancement token on a piece of ice protecting this server. Whenever the runner approaches the server, end the run unless they pay 2 credits for each advanced piece of ice on the server. Okay, I see. So they added an advancement token to Magnet. Not that that really does anything for Magnet, but it's free to do that. Free, so to say. Of course, they had to pay the 3 to res Kayambe Grid. But now this server requires 4 credits to be paid to even be allowed to run the server. So it seems like Earth Station here wants to slowly choke out the runner by making each and every server prohibitively expensive to even be allowed to run, because they can't run the remote unless they pay 6 credits. They can't run R&D unless they pay 4 credits. And HQ probably doesn't have anything valuable in it, and also has at least 1 piece of ice that's probably resable. We assume this is a low-cost piece of ice. Isla uses the second Maker's Eye, though, to come in here. Does she just pay outright the cost to... Hold on. Whenever the runner approaches this server, they must pay 4. I didn't see in the text here where she paid the 4. She pro-cons, plays 2 to pay the Maker's Eye. Play the Maker's Eye, sorry. Does the Maker's Eye bypass the restriction on running against Kayambe Grid? Regardless, I'll look that up in a moment. Regardless, she actually gets a really good hit here. Off of 3 cards, she sees 2 of them as agendas. Project Atlas is a really good steal, and then SDS drone deployment. She has to trash one of her programs to do that. She goes ahead and trashes Rozeki. I don't know if Rozeki was the right choice. I almost feel like you would have rather trashed either Leech or Clot. Especially because Leech had just been played. It had basically no counters on it. But maybe she feels confident in the money she has. She has Procon, she has the artist. Maybe she doesn't feel like she needs that money anymore. Back on the Corp side, though, we see Punitive Counter-Strike played. The first Punitive Counter-Strike. The Corp has enough money to boost that to 6 just outside of the runner's range. Do they have the second copy of Punitive Counter-Strike? Because if they do, it's game over. But it doesn't seem like they do. So it was just the value. Punitive Counter-Strike. They deal 4 meat damage to Isla. Unfortunately, though, that means that that win condition for Wayland is gone. Because if Isla scores just one more agenda, she wins the game. So there's no opportunity for future Punitive Counter-Strikes. But this is the situation I was talking about earlier, though, where if Isla had stolen any other agenda, she would have already won the game. But because Hostile Takeover is only worth 1 point, she's stuck at 6. The Corp decides to drop a card in the server, advances it once, gets passed over to Isla, who needs money, and she does pro-con twice, uses the artist and creative commissions. And yeah, maybe this was my mistake, because she's already back up to 13 credits. In spite of losing the Rozeki, which was her long-term economy, she has plenty of short-term economy. Can I even call it short-term economy? Procon is pretty long-term, so I guess no, I think I misspoke. I think she has plenty of economy, and getting Rozeki is fine. The thing is, though, is that the Corp has placed this card here in server 3. If this is an agenda, it's already bypassed Clont, because I mean, it's already on the table, so the Corp isn't fast advancing it. It's strange, though. You would assume that if the card in server 3 was an agenda, the Corp would have iced the remote server, but instead they ice R&D. Look at this lucky draw, though, from Isla. She plays her third Maker's Eye, her last one, and she's only seen like half her deck. Yet she's managed to draw all 3 Maker's Eye. She Maker's Eye into R&D. The outermost piece of ice is not rezzed, more than likely because the Corp only has 1 credit. Decides to go in here. Breaks through everything fairly easily. Magnet not too bad. Aket really only annoying because you can't break both. Sees the SDS drone deployment on top of the deck and wins the game. So yeah, that was interesting. We gotta analyze this quick because once the players leave, it's gonna kick us out of the game. But we look at this, Isla got all Maker's Eyes. That wasn't exactly why she won the game, but it was certainly fortunate to draw the Maker's Eyes early when she was able to use them. She drew a very early artist. Probably has 3 in the deck. I think we saw 1 binned earlier. Yeah, there was 1 in the bin. So essentially just got her economy up and running. It didn't feel like the Corp had a very good... I don't know how to put it. They didn't seem like they were moving very quickly. And I think that gave Isla plenty of time to set up. The other angle of it, too, was that... like... when you're playing that Wayland strategy, you don't want someone who's targeting your R&D. You want someone who's going to get frustrated and target your HQ or the remote server to force the runner to interact with their ID ability. But Isla kind of just ignored Wayland's ID ability and went straight for R&D, which is pretty normal for Shaper. But that's partly why I say it was a little bit lucky of her to have drawn all her Maker's Eyes in the top half of her deck. 1 or 2, sure, but the third one, of course, clinched it. Man, I forget how few games get played at night. We'll have to wait until a new one starts here. Unless Adriano's game... No, this one's finished. Or not. not finished, but we're pretty late into that one. We'll wait until a new one starts. Kayambe Grid seems mean. I guess in the meanwhile, we can look up the ruling on Kayambe Grid and see if cards like the Maker's Eye bypass the cost. Let's see, can the Corp, what is an advanced piece of ice? Yeah, we're not so lucky to find an exact ruling on it. I don't know. It says when your turn begins, place one advancement token on a piece of ice whenever the runner approaches the server. And they run unless they pay 2 credits. Maybe I missed it in the text. I couldn't find out the part where Isla paid the 4 credits. Regardless, this was really good to place on R&D. It's just a pity that like Isla was just able to keep up with it. I think the Corp did make the correct understanding that their lose condition was Isla getting into R&D. If they've played that deck with any kind of consistency, they probably know that their weakness is R&D. I'm just trying to think. I really wish the server would stop kicking people out after the players leave. We used to be able to analyze the game after it had quit. Like, I want to look at the cards, but I can't. Ferris was interesting. 5 strength ice really isn't very, like, that's a fairly decent strength. The 7 to res is pretty expensive though. But it's a barrier with a little bit of bite to it because of the tag. And then I guess if you're playing a strategy where you advance your ice anyway, yet having 10 strength is kind of bonkers. But getting a piece of ice with that much strength, or that many 3 advancement tokens, is just a lot in general. So I guess when you compare it to, yeah, this top review here is comparing it to some pretty relevant pieces of ice. Whoredom, Colossus, all of these are pretty good when you put 3 tokens on them. So it makes sense they would give Pharaoh something good. It'd be great against Paperclip. Yeah, someone's pointing out here in the comments that even if you boomerang Pharaohs, you still have to take the tag. Yeah, overall, I don't know. Ferris seems like a pretty good barrier out of Wayland. I don't know why I don't play it more often. It's a little expensive at 5 though. Like, or not 5, 7. Like with 7 credits, if you just pay 1 more credit, you could get a toll booth. I almost feel like toll booth is just better in general. Of course, you're dipping for influence at that point, so yeah, 2 influence. Same strength to begin with. Of course, code gate versus barrier, that might be relevant. But if you're just looking at the stats, I kind of feel like toll booth is in general going to be better. But I guess they serve very different purposes. Since that Wayland deck wanted to advance ice. Oh, we don't want to be a creeper, do we? Let's wait until the game actually starts. Okay, there, it looks like it started. So these guys are doing startup format, which I believe plays by a different set of rules. Let's see if we can get the rule startup. Okay, so startup basically just uses like the booster pack and then the base cards. So it's kind of like a core set game. It might also mean that these players are somewhat new, or one of them is new. So the game might be a little slow. Let me see if I can pull up a oh no, it's not gonna let us. No matter which window we pull up, it's going to be the same. Although I do have another computer over here. Wow, even logging into the other computer, it automatically puts me into the game we're watching. Maybe if I do it in incognito, it will bypass it. Yeah, there we go. Let's see, who are we watching? Lonzo and Piao. Yeah, it doesn't look like there's another game. Alright, we'll stick around with this one then. We've got Ken Tenma versus Mirror Morph. Ken, of course, wants to play those run events, and Mirror Morph wants to juggle 3 different plates, so they get a 4th plate for free. Mirror Morph planogrammed, dropped a naked card in server 1. Ken drops some good early econ, runs R&D, sees something, puts it back, passes the turn back over to Mirror Morph. So of course Mirror Morph wants to try to do 3 unique actions each turn, and if they do, they get a 4th unique action for free. So they're going to start out by hedge funding, installing, drawing. All of those were unique actions, so they get a 4th action now, which they're going to use to take a credit. They iced the card in server 1, which is interesting. They're up to 14 credits. So presumably they have the money to res whatever that is, but what would they have there in server 1? If it was an agenda, a 3-2, you would assume that they would just score it. Perhaps it's an agenda worth even more points, but to naked install that seems bold. Ken is also curious, and they're going to run that server. Click 1, it looks like. Wait a minute. No. They're running it on 4th click, which is actually really bad against Hospiroid. They drew, and ran. That is very bad. Against HB, you always want to run 1st click, so if it's a Biroid ice, you can break it. But yeah, it looks like they face tank into Bran. Bran's going to get to fire all of its subroutines. Funnily enough, the Corp does not activate Bran's 1st subroutine, which might indicate that they don't have any ice in hand. That also might be why there's no other ice on the table. Funnily enough, again, that means that was a very safe face check for for Ken into Bran, in spite of the fact that Ken should have been punished for that. Anyway, Vapor Frame hits the table, another piece of ice in front of HQ, goes back to Ken, who draws Rizekis and Bravados. Again, he's kind of doing things in a bad order here. Drawing first is always good. You should always draw first if you're going to draw on your turn. But Bravado should have been played click 3. Rizeki didn't need to be installed. If, like, Ken took a tag or had some other kind of lose condition handed to him, he'd have a click to respond to it. He hits an engram flush, though, which, again, luckily isn't going to do that much. The Corp names program. Funnily enough, Ken didn't have a single program in his hand, so he loses nothing from that. Back over to the Corp, they subliminal messaging. They install a piece of ice in front of R&D. Goes back to Ken, who Rizekis and Boomerangs, engram flush. That's a good target for Boomerang. He decides to legwork into HQ, which isn't the worst choice, generally speaking, you hold on to legwork and use it at an opportune moment, like later on in the game after you assume the Corp has built up a critical mass of agendas in HQ. But the Corp has been playing in such a way as to indicate almost that they don't have ice in hand, or at least early on they didn't have ice in hand. So I would suspect that they had a couple agendas in hand. They do hit the Project Vacheron, which is interesting because I believe Vacheron is banned from normal play, standard play. Same with Engram Flush, but they must be legal in startup. Spin Doctor, a card in server 1, and then a piece of ice to protect that. Back over to Ken. Ken decides to take the turn to set up, doesn't want to contest that. So when it bounces back to Mirror Morph, they Lacosta the first agenda counter on the card in server 1, and then they triple advance that card to score it as a Cyberdeck sandbox. Of course, that's going to be, under normal circumstances, a neutral score, but because one of those advancement tokens came from Lacosta, that's actually going to make the Corp 1 credit, kind of. -2 once you count the 3 res cost on Lacosta. Doesn't seem to matter, though, because Ken just goes straight into HQ. They didn't even, he inside jobbed the Engram Flush, I think, yeah, and just manages to snipe another Project Vacheron, which is probably good luck. I mean, I don't know what the odds were on him doing that, but I kind of lucky on his part, especially because both of these Vacherons are going to be able to tick down as the game goes on. Means Ken really only needs to score one more agenda to win the game. But of course, these agendas don't mean anything until the counters on them tick down. But because Ken got them so early, it doesn't really matter. He's going to be fine. He boomerangs the piece of ice in front of R&D. It does just end up being a magnet. Bravados steals. Oh my goodness, steals to send a message. And at this point, if you're the Corp, you gotta just feel like you're unlucky, because it's not like this Corp isn't doing things. Corp has plenty of ice. They Lacostaed a 4-2 a couple turns ago. You know, they're not just sitting around twiddling their thumbs, but Ken is doing all of this and making tons of money at the same time. Like, look, he has 27 credits. 27 credits. But partly this is because he hasn't had to install anything. Nothing substantial. He hasn't had to install any breakers. He installed a boomerang, but that's only 2 credits. He inside jobbed, but that was only a credit because he's Ken. He decides to go into HQ in spite of the fact that he's already won the game, so to say. Hits a Lacosta grid, decides to pay to trash it because why not? In literally 3 turns, Ken wins the game. Like, the Corp has to somehow find a way to win in 3 turns. Now 2 turns. And I don't think they can do it. Like, realistically, they would have to score an agenda on their next turn and then literally score another agenda on the next turn. They have something in this Lacosta grid server. They do put an advancement token on that for free at the beginning of their turn, but they install a card in server 5, which signals that the card in server 1 is not an agenda, except they did advance it. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they might literally just not have enough agendas to win, and they might just be killing time. Yeah, it looks like the Corp conceded because there was just nothing left they could do. Yeah, wow. This is not an agenda dense deck if it's running all these 5/3s. And presumably the rest would be 4/2s or 3/2s. So the fact that Ken got in there and grabbed all these 3-pointers right off the bat that's got to be disheartening. Let's see if this game, how far along are we here? I've seen at least Yakuza before. I know they're a pretty good player. So we'll go ahead and launch this game. Looks like Valencia versus my most feared corp ID, controlling the message. Valencia, of course, going to get free bad publicity right at the beginning of the game. Controlling the message protects their assets with a trace anytime they are trashed when they're installed. We're coming into this at turn 5. We already see the hard-hitting news dropping 4 tags on Valencia. And the runner pieces out. I don't blame them at all. They had 4 tags, they had very little money, it wasn't looking good for them. Controlling the message is such a rough ID to go against. Like, we didn't even need to see that entire game to kind of know how that game probably went. Which was controlling the message, put down assets. Valencia couldn't keep up. Valencia couldn't keep up. That's the crazy thing. How the heck does Valencia, who gets free bad publicity, still can't keep up with controlling the message? Like, she's not Wizard or anything. Not that Wizard's been in the game for years at this point. But still. Anyway, we'll get to see another game that they are playing. Same Valencia against Argus. This will be a bit easier of a matchup for her. She decides to drop daily casts and 2 fermenters. Pretty cool, I guess. Good long-term economy. Corp, on the other hand, also has plenty of money at the current moment, dropping their 2nd hedge fund. They're probably very happy to see that. A piece of ice on R&D, a piece of ice on HQ, feeling very safe. 5 cards in HQ, digging for what they need. You have to assume if it's an Argus deck, because they're Wayland, they're probably on kill. It's just a matter of how they want to kill. Tags into high-profile target or boom are the obvious choices, but there might be some kind of weird shenaniganry that they have. Valencia draws up a bit, drops a Rizeki. Kind of slow, but then again, Valencia tends to run a little slow. She has got those 50 cards. Oh, that's a pity. Looks like the runner had to go. I would have liked to have seen that game. Oh well. But yeah, Valencia does tend to run a little slow just because she's got the 50 card deck size. I guess we'll jump into this game. This game hasn't been going on for too long. Already on turn 2, we see, I'm never gonna say this chick's name right. Zaya? Is that? And don't ask me to pronounce her last name. Zaya versus Mirror Morph. So, Mirror Morph, an ice on the R&D, a server with a piece of ice. Zaya already has Bugalter out, in addition to DreamNet. I don't know if I agree with installing Bugalter this early. Zaya only has 6 credits, and she has no information on the board right now to indicate that she would need a Bugalter. Now, installing your Sentry Killer first, of course, does make you safer, so to say, because sentries are, generally speaking, the ones that are going to hurt you if you run into them. But yeah, just kind of looking at this, it doesn't seem like she had a real good reason for dropping it. She's not running the iced servers. She ran archives there so that she could trigger DreamNet, but she has 0 link. Why would she do that? She ran archives literally to draw a card off of DreamNet, but she could have just drew a card. Unless she has a card that triggers off of making runs, there's no real reason to run archives. Shipment from Tenon is no longer in the game, so she's not going to turn off some kind of fast advance. Unless we're in startup format again. I didn't catch that. Shipment from Tenon might be legal in startup, I'm not sure. Anyway, the Corp puts a 3rd card in server 1, advances one of those cards 1 time, passes it back over to the runner who wildcats. The Corp gives the runner 6 credits off of Wildcat, which in general I think is the correct decision. I think you don't want to give the runner the draw in most circumstances, unless the runner is dead poor and you're trying to force them to click for credits. I think in most circumstances, giving them the money is the better idea. But they, so they took the money, they run into HQ. The HQ ice is rezzed. It is a sentry, so funnily enough, the Bugalter does come into play there. And I don't know what's in the Corp's hands, but as the Corp, I wonder if rezzing Onsel here was actually even useful. Because Bugalter just breaks that for, let's see here, 3... well, I guess it's 4 credits. Because it's 6 credits, but they get the refund. I guess that's okay. I don't know what these cards are in server 1. I also don't know what this ice is. So maybe this is all just garbage, and the Corp is just trying to confuse the runner, and they have no intention of actually using any of this right now. So the fact they dropped down to 8 credits might be fine. And they're trying to dissuade the repeated runs into HQ, because that is, again, going to cost Zaya 4 credits each time she wants in. 6 if she wants to make a 2nd run, because I believe Bugalter's ability to regain credits can only happen once per turn. Anyway, a 2nd piece of ice goes on the remote server. Zaya draws a card and thinks for a little bit, decides to overclock. Where are we overclocking? Into HQ? Okay. That's one way to do it. She's going to come out of this making a little bit of money, because she's going to spend a credit, and then to play overclock, 5 credits come off of overclock, another credit from her personal account, and then 2 refund. Actually, I misspoke. She's going to break completely even due to overclock, so she gets to do that essentially for free, but she triggers DreamNet, so she does get the draw. So that's semi-decent value. It's not definitely not the worst. Goes in, sees a Lacosta grid. Oh, right, and because of her ID ability? No, she actually makes a credit off of her ID ability. So yeah, that's looking a little better. Anyway, she sees the Lacosta grid. Looks like she puts it back. Uses mutual favor to put a corroder out. Meanwhile, back to the Corp, it is revealed the the card in server 1 was an agenda. And because it was already on the table, they're able to seamless launch it and then drop the other 2 advancement tokens on it manually. Yeah, I think Mirrormorph had that there for at least a turn, maybe a turn or 2. And they're probably very happy to score that now, because Vacheron is the last agenda that you want the runner to get for their game-winning point. And I mean that like literally. If they're going to steal the Vacheron, you want it to be the last point that the runner gets. That way they have to wait another full 4 turns before the win condition actually happens. So scoring that Vatron now probably feels pretty good to get it out of the game, off the table, considering that Xayah is not on game point. Xayah, looks like they just manually installed Unity, which is going to have some really nice strength boosting due to the 3 icebreakers on the table. Runs R&D, hits an engram flush, but probably going to be able to break that pretty easily. Let's see. Yeah, oh, and she overclocked, so literally just paid the money off of overclock, broke everything. Gets in, draws a card with DreamNet, sees a Spin Doctor, and we trash the Spin Doctor, it looks like. Mirror Morph dropping a new card in a new remote, passing it back over to Xayah. Why does Xayah have this DreamNet, though? I mean, I think she's going to probably go positive with it, but she has nothing that gives her Link, so she's literally taking DreamNet just for the draw, which means she'd need to use it arguably like 4 times before she just breaks even. But I don't know, she's making it work for her, so maybe I'm crazy. It just seems weird. Then again, we are in startup format, so it could just be that in the startup format there aren't any better cards to use that synergize with runs, and that might literally be why we see DreamNet. Anyway, she accesses next activation, does not pay to trash it. The Corp Hedge Funds reveals that the card in their remote was Vapor Frame, uses that to install a card on R&D. Does get the free Mirror Morph action for a credit. Here we go. Here we go. I'm sure Xayah would have rather have had this earlier, but she finally pulls Penny Shaver. And this is really going to start synergizing her runs. Now when she runs, she not only draws a card off DreamNet, she also gets a credit on Penny Shaver. And if she is hitting R&D or HQ, she gains 1 credit for every card she accesses. So now she's getting a lot of value on every run she makes. However, she runs archives just to trigger her run abilities. Clicks for a credit, passes it back over to Mirror Morph. This is actually a fairly even game. I really don't see a clear victor right now. The runner's looking kind of scary because they have their full breaker suite on the table. They're also getting a lot of good synergy off of their runs, but the Corp is no slouch either. They're using Vapor Frame to install things for free. They've got plenty of ice on the table, a bunch of cards in Server 1. Overall, both sides are fairly set up. It's just that the Corp does not really have the money to res all of this, and that's why I'm putting this slightly in favor of the runner. The runner runs archives, drops 2 daily casts, which is just going to get them more and more money. Back over on the Corp side, they reveal that the card they had in Server 1 was actually just a Spin Doctor. They res that and pop that to shuffle one of the trashed Spin Doctors and Seamless Launch into R&D, and then they replace that card, that Spin Doctor, with another card, and then they drop next activation command, which signals that this card in Server 1 is an agenda. That kind of puts the pressure on the runner to do something. In response, Xayah hits archives. She blueberry diesels to filter her deck. She only has 2 clicks left, and if I remember correctly, yeah, the runner cannot use non-icebreaker cards, and each piece of ice gets +2 strength for this turn only. Which means if Zaya wants to get into this server, it's probably going to be fairly difficult. And in fact, she might choose to just let it go. Because she dropped those daily casts 2 turns ago, or last turn rather, I should say. She hasn't actually gotten anything off of that investment, so she's down in credits. She won't start seeing any return on that investment until her next turn. And so I think the Corp identified that as a scoring window, went ahead and dropped that Cyberdeck Sandbox in server 1, scores it on their next turn off the back of a Lacoste grid. So now at least the runner knows one of these is a Lacoste grid. Who knows what this other card is? It could be, what might it be? It could be a Biovault is a common one that you see. In response though, the runner drops Dockland Pass to get an extra access on HQ, and then they legwork. So they're gonna see what, like 4 cards? Plus, because it's Zaya, she's gonna make 4 credits off of that access. So she sees, let's see, Project Vacheron, Lacosta, Spin Doctor, and Magnet. Okay, not the worst by any means. She did get an agenda, so she ties it up 5-5. Although technically the Project Vacheron she stole is worth no points until 4 more turns pass. Back over to the Corp, they have plenty of money at 12 credits. They drop a card in front of HQ, which is interesting. Why would you put a card in front of HQ? At this point, the only thing the Corp needs to do is score 1 more agenda. They have the Lacosta grid in server 1, so they're advantaged in putting agendas in server 1. So by them not putting anything into server 1, it may signify that they don't have an agenda. It also might signify that they don't feel comfortable putting a card in that server because they feel like the runner has more than enough ability to break into that server, even if they res their ice, or they might not have enough money to res all that ice. Regardless, it does go back over to Zaya, who make her eyes into R&D. Again, multi-access into R&D and HQ is very good for Zaya because she gets the return on the play cost of the card because of the extra access and her making money off of those accesses. She sees, of course, 3 cards off of R&D. Doesn't seem like any of them are agendas. And again, I have to go back to this piece of ice that the Corp put in front of HQ. It just makes me wonder, like, is there an agenda in HQ? And if there is, it goes one of 2 ways. This is kind of where the mind game starts, is if it was, would they have rezzed the card in front of R&D? Because that's going to cost money that they might need to spend to protect HQ. It might mean that the ice in front of HQ can be rezzed for 7 credits or less, and so they feel comfortable doing it. It might also be something I'm overthinking, like the Corp might have just done that for no real reason. I don't like thinking that way because I like to assume everyone has a reason for doing what they've done, but I don't know. Zaya continues, though, to earn credits, partly through runs. She dirty laundries into archives, triggering all her run synergy. Yeah, this is interesting. So the Corp draws, mandatory draws, and then Vapor frames another card in front of R&D. I think at this point, At this point, I have to assume as the runner that HQ has no agendas in it. Because why would the corp be protecting R&D? Because if there was an agenda in HQ that they didn't want the runner to get, they would presumably do one of two things. They would have put that ice in front of HQ, or they would have put the ice in front of server 1, install the agenda in server 1 in the hopes that they could protect it with that ice. They wouldn't put ice in front of R&D, which signifies that they need to draw that agenda. Xayah does tranquilize Bran, which is pretty good. Of course, Tranquilize going to de-res Bran in 3 turns. Bran being a 6-costed ice is fairly expensive, meaning the corp probably can't afford to re-res that. They might consider trashing that or overriding it. I guess that's one and the same, but instead the corp ices archives to prevent Xayah from getting those free runs that are triggering her Penny Shaver and DreamNet. We'll have to see if that was useful. They also drop a new card in server 1 and click for a credit. The way I'm reading this, I don't think that card in server 1 is an agenda. Just the way the board state is looking right now, that's probably a Spin Doctor. Or some other card, although I'm looking at the archives and I don't know what it would be. Because Xayah has 18 credits, the corp only has 10. I don't think the corp would put an agenda in there right now. Xayah drops Boomerang, decides to Boomerang Onsel, of all pieces of ice, and they go into HQ with the Jailbreak. There's no res on the outermost piece of ice. Boomerang can only break 2 of Onsel's subroutines. It's interesting. I wonder which one they'll let fire. Probably the first or the second one. Both of them are... Oh, they just click. Okay, that makes way more sense. So they use Boomerang to break 2, and then they click to break the 3rd. They get in and see Lacosta, Seamless Launch, and Magnet. And yeah, this is not that surprising to me. I think even if we saw the 4th card in HQ, I don't think it would be an agenda. I think a HQ is very agenda dry. It's possible the card in server 1 is an agenda and it's a fake out. But yeah, I don't know. I don't really think it is. Yeah, that's evidenced by the fact that the corp just used Lacosta to put a token on itself. We see a 4th card go into server 1. It's a cold site server. I don't see this one get played very often. Place 1 power counter on this upgrade. As an additional cost to run this server, the runner must spend 1 click and 1 credit for each hosted power counter. When your turn begins, remove all hosted power counters. That's a strange one. How do you make that work for you? I feel like that card only works in Mirror Morph, because Mirror Morph wants to take 3 unique actions that click to add a power counter counts as a unique action. Understandably, Xayah just kind of chooses to completely ignore all of that. Oh, that's hilarious. Okay, so Tranquilizer did de-res Magnet, or not Magnet, Bran. So it's unfortunate because the Corp did lose Bran. But the outermost piece of ice was a magnet, which then immediately grabbed the Tranquilizer and blanked its text. So Magnet cleans up the Tranquilizer, and the Corp just goes ahead and immediately re-reses Bran. Now, is this smart? Is this not smart? We'll have to see based on the upcoming turns, because the Corp is now down to 3 credits. So, yeah, there's not a lot of money they have available to res the remote server. But again, if they're not drawing agendas and they know all of their agendas aren't in R&D, this makes perfect sense. Now, Xayah trashes nanoteching, which I believe gives the Corp 3 credits, doesn't it? When the runner trashes this asset, you may gain 2 credits. Is that only active when it's installed? No, I don't. Maybe it doesn't work in R&D? I'm not actually sure. It just says when the runner trashes this asset, you may gain 2 credits. Anyway, maybe I don't understand how that works, but regardless, even the runner had to laugh because they accessed 3 more cards off of R&D, and literally none of them are agendas. All they need is 1 more agenda to win the game. And they've been fishing for it for quite a while, and they haven't found it. The Corp is still intent on using Cold Site server to satisfy the condition of their unique 3rd action, but it's not really accomplishing much in as far as the game state goes. True, adding that token to Cold Site server doesn't really cost them anything, but Xayah isn't interacting with that server either, so it's not really gaining them anything either. That being said, it is a technical advantage, however slight. So arguably, if they don't have anything better to do to create that 3rd unique action, it's still worth doing. Xayah is now down to 7 credits, but they bravado to get some of that money back. They bravado into archives, presumably because they just want to get into an easy server. The Corp reses the card protecting archives. It is an engram flush. Looks like Xayah chose to break that with Unity for 4 credits. Makes some of that money back with DreamNet, and then, of course, I think 6 back with Bravado. 7 back, but there's a 3 cost investment, so it's more like 4 back. She then decides to overclock into the remote server, and I think this is a pretty good move. There's no way the Corp has enough money to res all the stuff in that server, so she might as well get in now, see what's in there, trash everything she can, kind of while the stakes are low now. She's also going to get to see some free information here because the Corp has chosen to res the middle piece of ice. It's revealed to just be an Eli. Eli, of course, can be broken by a corroder for 4 credits, I believe. It's not cheap. Eli is certainly a frustrating barrier to go against when you look at its res to strength ratio, especially considering that it has the double and the run subroutines. Eli historically has just been a very efficient barrier in Hospiroid throughout the history of the game. With no more money, the Corp can't res anything new. Zaya does make it into the server. She's going to get to see all of these cards. Turns out that one of the cards in this server was just another vapor frame. So indeed, the Corp had put that in there just as a bait, just to make that server look more intimidating, or to make it look like there was an agenda there, just to confuse the runner. Strangely, though... Oh, okay, never mind. I thought for a second that Zaya trashed the vapor frame. No, they trashed the Lacosta grid, and that makes a lot of sense. They get in there, they see everything, they verify it's not an agenda, and then they're going to trash the only thing in that server that's kind of worth being afraid of, which is that Lacosta grid. They also left the vapor frame in there so that if the Corp installs an asset or an agenda, they have to trash it, which just gives the runner more information. Indeed, the Corp overwrote that vapor frame to put another card into server 1. But with only 2 credits, Zaya, I'm sure, isn't afraid of it. She decides to go into HQ with a jailbreak. And apparently that was the right call, because she simply triple clicks through Onsel, hits HQ. Dockland's Pass is going to give her an extra access. So she's going to see 3 cards in total. She sees Magnet, Lacosta Grid, and Cyberdex, scoring the final point. Yeah, in general, I don't think Mirror Morph really did anything wildly wrong here. I think they just didn't draw any agendas, and it's like that sometimes as Corp. Like, they had a window to win, but that window closed, and they couldn't take advantage of that window fully because they just didn't have any agendas to score. That's not really their fault necessarily. Also, the startup format is kind of funky, since it uses a lot of banned cards in general, and the card pool is limited in general, so your strategies are kind of limited in startup. Anyway, we're going to jump into the next game right away, which is standard format. We see Sunny. I've been seeing a lot of Sunnies lately, I feel like, which is strange. Sunny versus, oh boy, Asa. Asa's a strong one. Probably every single Asa deck wants to go horizontal. And again, we are seeing that out of this Asa deck. Sunny had an Amakua. How did she lose it? Oh no. Oh no, loses the Amakua off of an Onsel. Gets into server 1, sees a Project Vitruvius? Steals it. How did she see? Hold on. Did the Corp immediately replace? I'm not following it quick enough. Anyway, the Corp, strangely enough, is running economic warfare. So because Sunny made a successful run on the last turn, drops the runner's credits by 4. It's nice that Sunny got the Vitruvius, but they lost the Amakua. They lose 4 credits, so they're down to 0. Oh my goodness, this is an Asa boom deck. Sunny goes into HQ and sees the boom in HQ, pays her only credit to trash it. I don't blame her for that at all. This is an Asa boom deck. That's why they run economic warfare. That's bizarre. So you have to assume then that they're on hard-hitting news. Anyway, Sunny goes right back into Onsel, decides to triple click to break it, wants to see this card in server 1 that has the 3 tokens. Oh no. That's gotta hurt. So the Corp had dropped that card in server 1, triple advanced it, and left it there. They could have scored it. How did they triple advance it though? How did it have the 3 tokens? Did it only have 2? I thought it had 3. Regardless, they were probably hoping Sunny wasn't willing to hit Onsel and triple click through it, but she was. She gets in, steals the second agenda. Ace is now looking a little bit behind. Sunny tags R&D, I think. Let's see here. Yeah, tags R&D, doesn't get anything off of it. Drops their second gachapon. Asa reveals that their naked installed card was a Jeeves. Presumably that's going to get them a little bit of forward momentum. They fully operational to bounce back from basically no money to 8. They install Spin Doctor and then they hard-hitting News. Now, of course, Sunny gets the +2 link, but the Corp has more than enough money to make those tags stick. Sunny now has the strange. Wait, what happened here? Sunny has the 4 tags, but she immediately gachapons in order to install a data folding, probably to try to bounce back from... I'm actually not sure why the gachapon was fired there. I mean, it wasn't the end of the world. It's not like... Gachapon... I see. It was simply because the Corp's turn was over. They had no usable actions, so she just went ahead and did it. Anyway, it looks like it didn't matter in the long run, simply because Sunny went back in and managed to fish for the 3rd agenda, and that got them the win. Kind of a weird game, largely because the runner didn't really use their ID very much, or their deck, really. They just kind of ran in, made it to the places they needed to go, and grabbed the agendas early. I don't know, yeah, I don't know in general, like, how to properly assess that Asa deck. It's very interesting that it had... Wow, a lot of these are startup. Look at this, four of the games tonight are startup games. Kind of just want to watch a standard game, you know? When did startup become so popular? But yeah, I don't know. The Asa Boom. I mean, I guess I could see it working probably similar to the way that controlling the message works. Wherein you simply put down so many assets that the runner can't keep up. You make your money off the back of, what is that card called? Fully operational? Yeah. So you make all your money off the back of fully operational. Economic warfare in order to create the credit differential. And from there, I mean, I could see it kind of working, maybe. It's just weird to see it coming out of Asa, and maybe that's the whole point, is you take your opponent off balance. I mean, Asa in general moves really quick, and it's hard for the runner to keep up in general. Do they really need Boom as a win condition? Because don't they... Well, I guess one of the weaknesses of Asa is it's like a strength and a weakness. Because they want to go horizontal, it also means their servers are fairly thin. And a runner is just going to be able to break into any of the servers they want. Yeah, I guess you need like, you need something. Because you're not going to win with Asa by building a scoring remote. Generally. I mean, I guess you could still build a scoring remote, but it kind of goes against the whole concept behind the ID. Since basically you just want to be getting free installs every turn as quickly as you can. Looks like some Korean players on tonight. Startup. I suppose we could peek in and see how one of these are doing. Another Sunny player. Uses Gordian Blade and DZMZ? Oh, no. Okay, I was gonna say the ID picture hadn't updated yet. This is lat. That makes a lot more sense. I was gonna say that would be very ambitious if your Sunny deck ran DZMZ. Oh, looks like Trial by Reddit's game started. We'll jump in and see how they do. Another Sunny deck. Good grief. When did Sunny become so popular? Oh, whatever. We have the very standard Ice hedge fund opening from Argus. It is Argus versus Sunny. Sunny double draws and then drops some early econ in the form of Daily Cast and Pad Tap. Not a bad opening for either team. Argus immediately scores out Hostile Takeover, wanting that early money potentially to kill Sunny early if she decides to run. However, Sunny doesn't run, still playing that setup game, drops another Daily Cast and a data folding. So her early econ from Daily Cast and kind of the beginnings of some long-term econ are being revealed. That does put Sunny down to 3 credits now, though, so the Corp is fairly safe to do whatever they want. In response, they create a new server, ice it once, and then they actually trash Pad Tap. Wow. So that kind of shows, yeah, I don't know. Pad Tap is one of those cards, it almost seems like there's never a good answer for the Corp. Trashing it feels bad, letting it sit on the table feels bad, it's just tough. Sunny, however, drops Amakua. Did they run Archives twice to get tokens? That happened really quickly. Oh, they exposed it. I see. They exposed a card with Deuces Wild, and Amakua also gets tokens on exposes. So that's how they had the double tokens. They run into the remote, which has a Surveyor, but of course that Surveyor only has 2 strength. They go ahead and break it. It's a Rashida inside. Sunny trashes that for a credit. The Corp in turn plays Too Big to Fail, which is going to hand another bad publicity over to Sunny. It's looking tough for the Corp, honestly. Like, if they wanted to build an early credit differential rather, I don't think trashing Pad Tap was the right call, but what is Argus's plan here? I assume it's with cards like Hostile Takeover being scored early and Too Big to Fail being played outright. I kind of think that like they must be on some kind of kill strategy where they're trying to stick Sunny with a bunch of tags, but Sunny has so much econ here already that they're going to be fine for now. And this Amakua is super annoying. Like, anytime Sunny wants counters on this Amakua, all she has to do is run archives, just like she just did. So she's getting free archives tokens. She actually reveals that the Corp willingly threw away a high-profile target. I think the Corp knows they're not going to win through meat damage right now. They even threw away a consulting visit. So oftentimes the strategy is to consulting visit the missing piece, right? So you either consulting visit for your hard-hitting news, or you consulting visit for your boom or your high-profile target. The fact that they threw away both of these cards signifies one of two things. Either A, through sheer chance, they actually already drew extra copies of those cards and they don't need these copies, or B, they're giving up. Oh no. Yeah, they're giving up the kill strategy. And actually, Sunny White Hat played White Hat there, revealed all the cards in HQ, and we see agenda, economic warfare, agenda. That is pretty rough. Even the Corp had to say yikes there. It looks like Sunny shuffled economic warfare and hostile takeover into R&D. And it's kind of like hunting season right now. Like, the Corp has a whole hand full of agendas, and they're just desperately trying to equalize the game. The Corp is going to be on the back foot through most, if not all, of this game at this point. They drew up. They're desperately trying to ice HQ, but this is just a stalling tactic. You don't really want all your ice on HQ. You want it on your scoring remote, especially with this Surveyor here, which is just going to get stronger and stronger the more ice in the server there are. The Corp just does not have a choice, though. It looks like, oh my goodness, they drew another agenda, because we saw Sunny shuffle one of those hostile takeovers into R&D, which means the Corp drew another one and they decided to score it outright. And yeah, just overall, this is tough. This is very tough for the Corp. The only thing going for the Corp right now is they have plenty of money. At 17 credits, they definitely have the money to res their ice. The problem is, Sunny doesn't really care, because the Corp also can't score any of those agendas. They're just sitting there in HQ. So Sunny's able to set up at her own pace. And if we look over at her side of the table, she's got DreamNet, a Gachapon when she needs it, a Rozeki. She's already outright played her Nexus. I don't even think she discounted this. I think she just paid for it straight out of the pocket. 8 credits. Sherman's already on the table, prepping for those barriers. Now the Corp does drop a card in server 2 and protects it with a piece of ice. Sunny hasn't shown her Sentry Breaker, and even if she did, does she have the money to use it? She might not really need to if she bypasses it with Security Nexus, but the Corp can still outpay this. Now, the outermost piece of ice in server 2 is just a vanilla. Probably the Corp is very sad that that was the only ice they could use. That's broken by Amakua for a credit. And actually, Amakua had 4 tokens. So she doesn't even need to bypass Surveyor. She just breaks it outright with Amakua. And that's gotta feel pretty bad as the corp. Okay, but good on them. They actually baited the run with reversed accounts. So they don't really lose anything from that. They give a little bit of information away over to the side of the runner, but on that same token, you're probably okay with the runner kind of wasting their time and their resources trying to get in there. Sunny then tries to go in for R&D. They're doing Nexus manually because there was an error in the previous run where the runner accidentally already clicked it, so they can't use the interface. Looks like they just went ahead and used Nexus to get through the mausoleum, or sorry, the mausolus. They see an NGO front, and that kind of sucks. The corp would have been much happier to get that NGO front, stick it in server 2, put 2 advancement tokens on it, and make Sunny sweat to go get it. That being said, Sunny White Hats, again, reveals Project Atlas, Above the Law, Global Food, and Too Big to Fail. So we see 3 more agendas, another card that just gives bad publicity over to Sunny, and that's something I'm not really bringing up when I should be. I keep saying that Sunny is spending credits to break these subroutines, but she's not really. She's breaking them all for free because she gets 3 free credits every run because of the 3 bad publicity. Now, the corp does sweep the virus counters off the table. Hopefully that's going to get them a little bit of momentum, but the problem is that Sunny's going to do exactly what she just did, which is go right into archives and start getting those counters back again. The corp reses magnet. Sunny doesn't have a decoder, so she does have to use security nexus to get through that, but because yeah, I'm just making sure it was security nexus. Yeah, security nexus bypasses. Because Sunny has 3 free credits every time she runs, the corp doesn't even contest the security nexus trace. There's no way the corp would even want to touch that. So Sunny gets into archives, gets a free credit off DreamNet, a free draw, a free token on Amakua. It's just looking really good for her. And again, the corp is just kind of stuck here. They go ahead on their next turn to play Economic Warfare to drop Sunny's credits down by 4. And then they play Hard-Hitting News, boosting the trace to make those tags stick. So Sunny does now have 4 tags that she has to deal with, but she's making so much money every turn. It just doesn't matter. In fact, she even ignores them here. Click 1, she's just going to run right into R&D. Security nexuses, the mausolus, gets into R&D, draws cards, makes money off DreamNet, more Amakua counters, and she sweeps 3 of the tags. And that, frankly, is probably the best move she could have made, and it's a good move. She gets forward momentum on that Amakua. She's drawing and getting credits for free, and sweeping off all the tags but 1 is going to put her in a safe place where even if Argus is running Boom, Argus can't play it. And even if Argus has high profile target in hand, it's only going to do 2 meat damage. It's not going to be enough to kill her. Corp kind of, just again, doesn't really know what to do. I feel like they pay 2 to trash Sunny's daily casts. But yeah, I don't know. Is that really what should be being done here? Yeah, Sunny's just probably really doesn't care that that was trashed. It goes back over to Sunny, who runs HQ and sees an Afshar. Now I believe on HQ you can only break one of those subroutines. It's a code gate though, and she doesn't have a decoder. It looks like she goes ahead and has Afshar fire. Did she break? Let's see. No, I didn't quite catch what happened there. Anyway, gets into R&D, bypasses Mausolus with Nexus, sees a global food, goes ahead and takes the tag from Argus's ID ability because of the steal, shakes her last 2 tags, passes it back to Argus. Argus has 0 credits. The only thing they can do is triple click for the credits, which just gives Sunny yet another turn. And again, we're just going to see this repeat itself over and over. Sunny bypassing Mausolus, getting into R&D. Either she's going to see an agenda, or in this case, she's actually seeing assets that she wants to trash. Now, if she trashes something, she doesn't get a power counter on Amakua. But she's probably okay with that. In general, it's fine, I guess. Trashing the reversed accounts means that it's 1 less card for the Corp to try to trick Sunny over here. That being said, the Corp does indeed install a card in server 2. Sunny immediately goes to check that out. Can break the vanilla for a credit. Can break, actually no, can't break Surveyor just yet. Needs 1 more power counter, sorry, virus counter on Amakua. But she is, again, just going to bypass that with Security Nexus. And the Corp can't contest this. 2 of those credits for the trace go to Sunny for free. And the Corp is broke. The card in that server, though, was just a Rashida Jahim. Sunny pays to break, or pays to trash, rather. In response, on the Corp's turn, they immediately drop a card and double advance it. Now, to me, if I was Sunny, this signifies that that card is an NGO front. And I think she also thinks that, because she's ignoring it entirely and going straight into R&D. Then again, though, if she gets another token on Amakua, she can get into server 2 for free because of the bad publicity credits. So she security nexuses into R&D, doesn't see anything good. Now she has the option to run server 2, but again, it's almost certainly an NGO front. So there's really no point in running it. And indeed, she draws Sure Gambles and White Hats. White Hat trace is successful. We see in HQ, Atlas, Above the Law, Global Food, Economic Warfare. And that's just a handful of agendas. The Corp plays Economic Warfare, but it just doesn't matter. Sunny is at 11 credits. How does she play Black Hat? I thought you had to... Oh, okay, no. You don't need to have a successful run to play Black Hat. But yeah, on her next turn, she opens up with Black Hat for the extra access and immediately goes in... Oh, gosh. Yeah, immediately goes into HQ with the Mad Dash. I thought they outlawed Mad Dash. We'll have to look that up in just a second. But this game is pretty much over. She uses Amakua to break the end the run subroutine on Afshar. Oh my goodness, there's only a vanilla in front of HQ. That's going to be a credit to break. Can't imagine that there's anything else in front of HQ that's going to be that. Yeah, it's just another Afshar. It's going to make somebody lose 2 credits, but it's really not the end of the world. Yeah, and she's going to get into HQ. She's going to see 3 cards, and the first one she steals is going to gain her an additional agenda point. So she hits Global Food, takes a tag, hits Project Atlas, takes a tag, hits another Project Atlas, takes a tag, adds Mad Dash to her score area. She ends the game at 9 agenda points to 2. And ultimately, that really didn't end any other way than it looked like it was going to by about turn 2. And that's because, as fun as this Argus deck seems, it looks like it only has one goal, and one goal only, and that is to high-profile target the runner. And if the runner shuts that strategy down, like Sunny did pretty much right at the beginning of this game, there's just nothing the Corp can do. The Corp had no secondary win condition. There's no way they're going to build a scoring remote with vanillas. Afshars almost have to be installed on HQ. That's kind of the whole reason you use them. Mausolus is a decent card. Surveyor can be very strong, but not when you need to spread them out like this, because yeah, the Corp had to protect HQ. They didn't have to put an ice in front of Archives, but they kind of, now what am I saying? They had to put an ice in front of Archives because Amakua was just going to gain free counters off of running Archives at that point. But yeah, they gave Sunny the 3 bad publicity really early, and any Corp deck that gives the runner bad publicity early on that fast has to likewise win just as fast, and this Argus deck was not able to, and so ultimately they folded. Even though that was kind of one-sided, it was, I don't know, I think it was still fun to watch. Oh, is this another standard game here? Oh, we're quite late into this one. This looks interesting, but I think we'll hold out for a game that we can get a little bit more into the beginning of. It's kind of strange in general, though, that we've been seeing so many Sunnies lately. Why would Sunny become part of the meta? She can't do anything that like other runners can't already do for the most part. You really play Sunny to have access to Security Nexus. I mean, that's kind of like her big thing. Security Nexus is really strong, don't get me wrong, but it's also really expensive and doesn't work if the Corp has more money than you. I mean, it does, but it doesn't. Like, if you both have a ton of money, then the Corp still has to think about it, because what if they boost the trace really high and you just go, okay, I won't boost the trace, I'll take a tag, I'll jack out, I'll shake the tag, and then the Corp just spent a ton of money on something that really didn't matter. But on that same token, a really good counter to security nexus is simply servers that are very deep with ice. Because you're only going to be able to bypass one ice per turn. So if you start putting like 3, 4 ice on your servers, Sunny has a real hard time getting in. But that's also why we're seeing a lot of these Sunnies use Amakua. Because Amakua helps offset that. Because, sure, a corp may be able to put 4 pieces of ice on their scoring remote. But are they going to be able to put 4 pieces of ice on every server? Chances are no. I mean, I don't know about you, but I don't exactly have 4 pieces of extra ice to put on archives. Not exactly a place I'm super intent on protecting most games. Ugh, goodness gracious. Anyway, we'll wait for a new game to open up here. Spoiler that made fans around the world say, OMG, Wayland's getting good ice. Yeah, I remember when this ice was released, it did kind of feel like that. What's the deck list this week, I wonder? As? I've always liked As. Never felt like I built a very good deck for them, though. 3 diversions, bravado, boomerang. Sports hopper? What? Sports hopper? Oh, wait, he's As, of course. He installs them for credit cheaper. Okay, okay. So it's 2 credits for 3 cards, plus the link if you want them. But is that still though, that's kind of expensive for 3 cards. If it was 1 credit, maybe, but 2 credits for 3 is a little expensive. But hey, I mean, this deck went undefeated. Not, I've never joined a store championship. Well, I've never joined a store championship, period. But even if I did, I doubt my deck would go undefeated. So what do I know? Tech Trader. Oh, okay. So it's a trash can deck. What? You're kidding me. It is a trash can deck. Spy camera, yeah. Sports hopper. Simulchip. Flip switch. Boomerang. Okay, it's making a lot more sense now. Actually, this looks like a pretty fun deck. Oh my gosh, an Abagnale technically has a trash can on it. Huh. And you can trash Revolver. Okay, okay. Although if you trash Abagnale, aren't you just kind of SOL'd? Like, you only have... I never know how these people play these decks where they only run like 1 breaker of each type. Of course, Boomerang really throws the math off and stuff like that because Boomerang might as well just be an icebreaker. The fact that it recurs itself is just amazing. Only one copy of Deuce is Wild. Probably because there was just one influence left. Paperclip makes sense. I see. Yeah, okay. This seems like a pretty decent deck. Diesel for the filter, Bravado for money, Deuces because probably they had like one extra influence and one extra card. 3 diversion of funds, so early aggression on HQ. 1 copy of Mutual Favor just in case you ever need it. Sure Gamble is pretty obvious. Boomerang, very strong. Flip Switch. Flip Switch is interesting because it gives you Severnius's, not Severnius, what was that guy's name? It's the blue guy. I'm gonna type in Severn, not Severnius, just Severn. Basically gives you Severn's ID ability, except it works on any ice. You can just jack out anytime you want. No questions asked. Prognostic Q loop. Q loop is just to reinstall the boomerangs and or any other hardware. Or isn't there a way to recur funds though with Q loop? Yeah, with Masterwork, because the first time you install a piece of hardware, draw a card. So you use Q loop, you spend a credit, but then you draw a card off Masterwork. And because this deck runs all this hardware, it doesn't run a, well, no, yeah, it does actually run quite a bit of hardware. 3, 5, not counting the Q loop. Well, we won't count the Q loop or Masterwork. 3, 5, 6, 9, 12. So about 25% of your deck. Not to mention the fact that Boomerang's going to be reshuffling back into your deck. And then tech traders are just going to make you money off of every trash can you use. Oh well. Nope. Finally, a game started. We missed it. Okay, looks like Ag Infusion versus Max. Max! Wow. Been a long time since I've seen her. This looks like a fun game. A lot of cards already in the trash, but of course that's partly because of Max's ID ability. Max using Steve Cambridge off the back of DJ Fenris makes a ton of sense. That's going to help Max recur a lot of those cards that keep getting binned. Playing Max these days is a very bold move simply because there's no levy AR access anymore. Wait, I think I said that wrong. Levy, gosh, there's no levy. You can't shuffle all your heap back into your stack anymore. So when she's out of cards, she's kind of out of cards. Anyway, Corp goes ahead and scores a Cyberdeck Sandbox. They've got a Spin Doctor on the table and a 2 ice deep remote server with 2 cards in it, not to mention a piece of ice protecting HQ and R&D both. Meanwhile, Max, playing quick and fast, has a lot of setup here. A lot of setup, but no breakers, no anything like that. Has a turning wheel, Earthrise, 2 daily casts, 2 Aeneas informants. Dirty Laundries into Archive. Looks like she's not really interested in contesting that remote this turn. Does have a Botulus installed on the outermost piece of ice. It's going to tick up to 2 tokens now. She has 18 credits. Oh, wow. And a Maw. A Maw dropped for 6 credits. That's not cheap. Immediately followed up by a run into R&D, and the Corp has to decide, do they rest this? And the card they had double advanced in server 2 was an NGO front. That is amazing. Not only that, but the card in front of R&D was revealed to be a whopping 12 res cost Chiashi, which is risky against Anarch. But if you take a look at Max's discard pile, which we're getting to see a ton of, again, because Max is going to draw draw one card for free only after trashing the top 2 cards of her stack. So the Corp gets a real good insight into her deck. We don't see any ice destruction here. Well, no, I lie. We see 2 hippos. So theoretically, a Chiashi on the outside like that, if Max ever gains the ability to break it, you know, it's very hippo susceptible. Of course, with 2 hippos in the bin, though, you're probably feeling pretty comfortable as the Corp, since the third is only going to be floating around somewhere. Less of a chance, essentially, of the runner having it. But the runner would need hippo, also a barrier breaker. Back to the Corp. After they had rezzed a Kakugo, they reinforced that Kakugo in front of HQ with another piece of ice, which kind of signifies that there's an agenda, at least in HQ. But that's not really a giveaway because we're already on turn 9. Only 1 agenda has been scored. If you're the runner, you are just already going to assume there's agendas in HQ. So yeah, it really doesn't give that much away. Oh no! Here it is. Okay, so that third hippo that I was talking about, apparently Max did have it in hand. So exactly what we were talking about happened. She drops the hippo, runs into Chiashi, pulls paperclip from the bin. Suddenly, the Chiashi is gone, and the Corp invested 12 credits into that Chiashi. And it's just gone. Oh my goodness. In response to the Corp rebuilding the dike by double icing R&D, Max rebirths into Omar Kyung, goes into archives, and sees HQ, I believe, which triggers, oh my gosh, so many things trigger. Stephen Cambridge triggers, allowing Kyung to add Overclock to his hand, accesses Anansi from HQ, because nothing was scored or stolen. Sorry, not scored. Because, yeah, nothing was trashed or stolen. A card at random has to be trashed from HQ. Is it random or does the Corp get to choose? No. Yeah, it is random. It's Alice Merchant I'm thinking of where the Corp gets to choose it. Anyway, the Corp understandably ices archives with the new Anemone ice. Kyung gets through that with MK Ultra coming out of the bin. It's not super cheap, all these installations that Kyung is doing. So they are down to 7 credits. However, they're triggering Cambridge every time they get in here. So we now see Stargate actually pulled from the bin using Cambridge. What was access? Another Anemone was accessed from HQ. Something, again, though, is trashed at random from HQ. And Turning Wheel is getting counters on it. So we're up to 5 Turning Wheel counters. Kyung has... Oh, and now the Aeneas Informants make sense. Because it's kind of like a double hedging your bets, where either you get into HQ and you access something and you steal it or trash it, or you don't, in which case Maw triggers, Aeneas Informant triggers. I think that's it. Yeah. But it's you're getting something one way or the other. Either you're getting a score, you're getting a trash, or you're getting money. Now, the Corp needs to make something happen. They put a card in server 2. The outermost piece of ice on server 2 is still covered by Botulus, which has 7 virus tokens on it. So whatever that is, that piece of ice might as well not exist. Hippo was pulled from the bin by using labor rights by Kyung. Hippo is installed. The corp doesn't even bother rezzing that ice because, oh, fancy, for a lot of reasons. First off, if they res it, Botulus would just break it and then Hippo would delete it. But second off, the innermost piece of ice there was a magnet. The moment they res that magnet, they pull that Botulus onto the magnet, and now that Botulus is stuck there and it's blank. That being said, they do make their way into the remote server. It is a Nisei Mark II. So it's a little bit of give and take. Kyung loses his Botulus, but he gains an agenda. The corp follows that up immediately by putting another card in server 2. Omar here overwrites their old Botulus by putting a new one on the table. On the outermost piece of ice of R&D, it's another magnet. Oh my goodness. As the corp, you just have to be laughing right now. Like you have to feel good about that. Omar breaks it and then just goes ahead and uses Hippo to trash it, which I don't really agree with. I don't know. Like, is that worth it? Because well, it is 3 credits every time you want to break that magnet, because Black Orchestra is not a great breaker in that regard against magnet. It's pretty expensive to break. So never mind. I guess I understand it then. Turns are moving very quickly here. I'm not sure exactly what the corp did on their recent turn, but Kyung here drops another Hippo, their third and final Hippo. Again, pulled out of their stack from the use of labor rights. Hits R&D, steals another Nisei, goes in again, hits an NGO front, trashes that, and then hits I'm not actually sure what the third card was. Regardless, the corp responds by using Rashida, and then they install more ice in front of R&D. Omar goes in through archives into HQ, and this has got to be tough for Ag Infusion. Now, Ag Infusion decks typically run a lot of ice. The reason being is because they need to be able to throw their ice away to force the runner to bounce into other servers. So it's kind of a good matchup in a strange way. Like, Ag Infusion, like Omar and Max here, this Max Omar deck wants to destroy your ice. But as Ag Infusion, you actually have a lot of extra ice. So your response to the runner breaking and destroying all of your ice is literally just to install more ice. So Ag Infusion is keeping up with Omar. They're kind of behind, but they're not out of this. It's a little tough, mostly because Omar has 20 credits and 9 turning wheel counters. Like, I don't think the corp is in a good position, but I can think of so many other corps in this exact same scenario which would be in so much worse of a position. It's especially frustrating because Omar keeps going in here and getting in through archives and then he doesn't access an agenda, and then he forces a trash from HQ with Maw. That being said, Omar has decided to use as many turning wheel tokens as it takes to access every single card in HQ. They sweep HQ, they hit an Obokata, and that's going to be game. It doesn't surprise me that Omar won that. He was very set up to succeed. He had plenty of money. He was keeping the corp on the back foot the whole time. Again, Ag Infusion, it's not like they were just getting blown out of the water or anything like that. It was just that they just couldn't stabilize the game, and Omar was making that very difficult to do through the constant disruption, constantly forcing trashes with Maw, constantly trashing Ice with Hippo, invalidating potentially certain Ice with Botulis. It was pretty amusing, though, how many magnets were rezzed to steal those Botulises. And Botuli? Is that how you say that? Is it Botulisses or Botuli? We'll go with Botuli. But all the Botulis cards being blanked was really funny. It just wasn't enough. There wasn't enough time in the game for the corp to stabilize. But yeah, in general, decks like that are tough. Just disruption decks in general. Max being played like that was pretty impressive. Like, it was kind of stuff that we've seen Max do in the past. So I don't want to say it was revolutionary, but I think anyone playing Max these days, in a world without Levy AR, it is Levy AR, right? Yeah, Levy AR AR lab access. Does AR mean alternate reality? Oh well. But yeah, without Levy AR, you can't cycle your cards back in. It looked like they relied on labor rights, though, mostly. Labor rights is a pretty strong card. I want to say it used to be banned. Oh, it wasn't banned. Okay, it was restricted. Yeah, because getting to just shuffle in 3 cards, 3 of any card from your heap is still pretty strong. On top of that, getting to draw a card immediately after that is pretty good, because you don't really lose momentum. But yeah. Looks like this deck was inspired by Very Greedy as used Mackler. Bankroll. Firstly, I cannot overstate how much I like Prognostic Q Loop. Constantly looking into the future, seeing the top 2 cards of your deck is intoxicating. Allows you to plan out your current turn and a fair bit of your next. Whether it be in when and how to draw, allowing aggressive plays off the top. Why do you get to see 2, though? Does Q-Loop look at 2? Oh, it is 2. Oh, right. First time each turn a run begins. I'd forgotten that triggers off running, not just... I was only reading the paid ability. Oh, we got another game ready. Max, same Max as before, versus Hyobu Institute. Hyobu, of course, wanting to reveal cards, although I assume this is standard format, which means Engram Flush isn't going to be around. We're already 11 cards deep into the stack of Max, but we're only on turn 2, which seems about par for the course. Max already has Maw and is using that to pressure the Corp. We see Career Fair dropping a... Actually, hold on. Yeah, what's going on here? Moshing was played. What did we get rid of with Moshing? Moshing's a good card if you want to burn through your deck and get paid for it. Guinea Pig, too, for that matter, although I feel like that does it in a different way, in a way Max probably doesn't want. Runs server 2, hits a snare. Hyobu goes ahead and pays the 4 to deal 3 net damage. Hits some semi-decent targets here. Hippo, Labor Rights. Those are cards Max would rather have in hand. Hyobu drops a new card in server 3. Now this card in server 2 is that snare. It's probably going to stay there for the rest of the game. Max Rizekis hits the card in server 3, which is a bioethics. Chooses not to trash it. Why? Chooses not to trash it, but the only thing... Oh, does Maw trigger even if you access a remote server? Oh my gosh. The only contingency is that it's not in archives. I see. So Max did that because they rather would force the Corp to discard a card and gain the credit off Aeneas Informant. Anyway, Max goes in, accesses bioethics, doesn't trash it to trigger Aeneas and Maw, accesses bioethics again, trashes it, botuluses the outermost piece of ice on HQ. Hyobu, meanwhile, draws a card and celebrity gifts. We see Envelope, Global Food, Hansei, NGO, Viral Weaponization. So we know that there are at least 2 agendas in HQ. But the Corp now has 15 credits. Omar Kyung has been revealed, and in response, Hyobu immediately double ices archives. Triple ice? What? Okay. Yeah, the double ice makes sense, but triple icing archives? There must be agendas in archives. In response, yeah, this is why I don't know if triple icing archives was really the right call. In response, Kyung says, okay, I'll target R&D. Drops Stargate, does a Stargate run in R&D. Now, Mind Game is going to be played. I believe if Mind Game works, Hyobu gets to choose a different server for the runner to hit. Omar decides they don't really want to play that game, so they install Black Orchestra, use Hippo to break or to destroy Mind Game. And they maw a card out of, sorry, they don't maw, they Stargate, Snare. Then they go back into R&D to maw, force a trash out of HQ. In response, HQ, or Corp, re-ices R&D. It's another Mind Game. It's pretty good. Mind Game has a strength of 4, which normally would be pretty relevant, but unfortunately Black Orchestra boosts directly into 4 strength, and that's going to make it a fairly normal break cost. It's actually a little bit on the better side of things. Some breakers would need to spend upwards of 4 credits to break Mind Game. So 3 is about average, I would say. Regardless, the Corp puts a second piece of ice in front of R&D. Omar continues to set up, drops a liberated account. Back to the Corp, new server, double advanced card. Now why is Omar accessing this? This is the snare. They already know what this is. Oh, good. Okay, they undo. I was going to say that would be a very tragic mistake. The card double advanced in server 4 could very well be an NGO front. In fact, it's probably an NGO front. But wouldn't it be hilarious if that was an agenda? The Corp immediately dropped that, double advanced it twice so confidently. They're projecting that it is an NGO front, but that would be the perfect ruse to make it be an agenda. Unfortunately, it is not. It is just an NGO front. They pop it, gain the money. Kakugo was encountered in the last run into HQ. That's going to be a little annoying for Omar because they're going to lose. They're going to lose a card. Actually, this Botulist card here is also a Kakugo. Smartly, Hyobu puts a third piece of ice in front of HQ, and they might not even res this ice. What the importance of this ice is that it protects both of the Kakugos, because Hippo can only be used on the outermost resed piece of ice. So, if Omar wants to do normal runs into HQ, it doesn't matter that Kakugo can be broken for a single credit, they still need to take a net damage every single time they hit that. Now, Chiashi has been revealed as protecting R&D. This is very risky because we only see one Hippo being used, which means theoretically, just like that last game we were watching, Hippo can be dropped, break this Chiashi, and then suddenly the Corp is out the 12 credits they used to res it. The Stargate run into R&D revealed Complete Image, Ngunga, and Global Food. Surprisingly, the runner decided to trash Ngunga and not Global Food. They then do an Omar run into HQ, and they see Standard Procedure. Corp uses genotyping to get some recursion going, probably trying to pull valuable cards out of archives that has been sorry, the game's moving so fast I'm having trouble keeping up. That have been binned into archives. Omar gets an HQ, I believe that was. Makes a run on server 2. Oh, strange. So Omar accessed the snare in server 2 because they knew the Corp couldn't pay to use it and trashed it, but I don't really know why. Why would Omar want to trash that? I don't think they really gained anything from it. But Omar is in an extremely commanding position here. Hyobu has basically just kind of sat here and been a sandbag throughout all of this. They've super iced archives, and they've got some pretty decent ice on the centrals as well. It's just that in general, they have no scoring remote. And this is kind of what we were talking about in the last game, where we said, well, Agon Fusion has a bunch of extra ice, so at least Agon Fusion can put ice on these servers. Hyobu seems like they have a bunch of ice, but they don't really have essentially what they've done is they've foregone a scoring remote. They don't even have one, and they've decided to protect the centrals instead. And so, like, these 3 pieces of ice here on archives would probably normally be over here in a remote server, allowing Hyobu to score agendas. It may look like this is an even game because it's 0 agenda to 0 agenda, but all of those agendas are in each archives right now. Like, the agendas are either sitting in HQ or they've been dumped into archives, and there's not a whole lot Hyobu can do. Omar runs archives, runs into Mganga. They play a game, they both bet 0, so the card does nothing. Omar hits envelope, but that's broken with paperclip very easily. A second Mganga is rezzed. They play a Psy game. The Corp this time chooses to spend 2 credits to play the Psy game, forcing the run to then continue, I believe. If you in the runner spend different credits, do 2 net damage. Oh no, it just deals net damage. So Omar got into wherever he was going anyway. And yeah, at this point, there's not a whole lot going for Hyobu. Hyobu was looking pretty strong with all of that ice they had stacked on archives, but 2 of those pieces of ice automatically trashed themselves. So what looked like a really big scary archive server ended up being what is essentially now just an envelope. Omar now has Steve Cambridge, which means he's going to be able to start recurring all the cards from the stack. And I think at this point, that's interesting. I think the Corp was a little upset there. They said they were they were like, okay, you're very cool with your original max deck. I feel like that was a little salty, but I don't know. I guess it can get upsetting if you're losing, but I think it was a cool max deck. It took a lot. It was kind of old school. It's the second time we saw that max deck be played, but I think rebirthing into Omar is a pretty common thing that Anarchs used to do all the time. So seeing it now, it never stopped being good. We just haven't seen it a lot lately. So, like, the court being like, aha, yes, you're very original with your max deck. It's like, well, I mean, yes and no. Like, on the one hand, sure, I think that player was using an original max deck. It seemed to be one that they built themselves, but at the same time, you expect, I don't know, you would, it's not that surprising to see Max rebirth into Omar, because Max is essentially a blank ID after all the cards disappear from the stack. So, yeah, I don't know. I feel like the Max deck was original, but it was using a lot of older tricks, and I appreciated it, at any rate. It had a nice balance between ice destruction, speed, recursion. It had breakers. I was trying to think of what its weakness might be, And Arc Lockdown doesn't really... I mean, Arc Lockdown kind of shuts it down to a point. Like, I don't know how many copies of Paperclip that guy ran, or MK Ultra, or Black Orchestra, but theoretically, if you hit all the breakers of a certain type with Arc Lockdown, which are all being very obviously displayed to you in the bin, you could shut down that max deck. You could also theoretically just build servers that were so expensive for the bin breakers to get through that they were prohibitive. You can also protect your inner pieces of ice by installing outer unresed pieces of ice to prevent them from being trashed from Hippo. I don't know. There's counterplay to it. So, yeah, I don't think it's like a broken deck or something, but certainly a strong one. Anyway, we see Architects of Tomorrow versus Alice Merchant. Architects of Tomorrow ices archives, ices HQ, and hedge funds, but Alice goes into R&D, hits advanced concept hopper, uses credit kiting to install Obelisk. Okay. Takes a tag for it. That's interesting. It's a pretty decent opening for Alice. The Corp responds by icing R&D. Alice triple draws and clicks for a credit. Stronger Together. Sorry, not Stronger Together. Architects of Tomorrow. Subliminal Messagings. Hedge funds. And creates a new remote with a single piece of ice in front of it. Now, Alice had a good start. Oh my goodness. Now I understand why she credit kited and kept the tag. She's playing God of War. Which means she's a tag me deck. I didn't even think these decks were viable anymore. This is going to be fascinating. Okay, so the card in server 1 was revealed to be a Spin Doctor. Alice takes a tag to add 2 virus tokens to God of War. I should have realized it when she played Obelisk. Your maximum hand size is increased by 1 for each tag you have. So her hand size is actually 7. The first time a successful run on R&D or HQ ends, draw 1 card for each card you access. Yeah, this is wow. This is a really interesting Alice Merchant deck. Okay, so the Corp installs a card, double advances it, goes back to Alice, who, of course, every single turn here, she's just going to be taking a tag. She's going to be taking a tag no matter what here with God of War, because it increases her hand size and it plays into whatever crazy wild like scheme she's trying to put together here. I'm really interested to see what it's going to be. Now, the card in server 1 was a Project Vitruvius, and in fact it was double advanced over the initial agenda requirement, which means that HB now has a very strong 2-token Project Vitruvius to pull 2 cards, or 1 card and 1 card, whenever they want it, out of their bin. They install presumably an upgrade in server 1, along with another card with an advancement token on it. Alice drops liberated accounts and simply clicks up credits from it. Doesn't really seem to be interested in interacting with the game state, and that is going to cause problems. Alice can't just sit here and set up, even if, you know, she wants to, with this interesting tag me strategy. The Corp very correctly is responding by just moving quickly. And that card they had in server 1 was Cyberdeck Sandbox, which means that not only is it a credit neutral score, but it automatically purges virus tokens, which means all the virus tokens on God of War are now gone. Not maybe the end of the world, but pretty, I'd say it's pretty impactful. Like, Alice would much rather have those tokens be on God of War. Now, she does run amok here into an Onsel. Run amok forces one of the rezzed pieces of ice during this run to be trashed after the run is completed. Onsel goes ahead and fires all of those. No, only gets to fire one subroutine. Prevents the runner from stealing or trashing corp cards because Alice actually clicked through the other two. Now, because Alice passed Onsel, Hosbyroid, Architects of Tomorrow, was able to res another Byroid ice, discounting it by 4 credits. It looks like they're going to undo this in order to change how that worked. They're both interested in the timing. I didn't see anything that was played incorrectly because in order for the encounter with Onsel to end, Alice has to pass it, and when she passes it, that is going to trigger Hosbyroid's ID ability. Like, I don't think anything there happened illegally. I think that was the correct way that worked. At any rate, they redid it. Instead of jacking out immediately, Alice Merchant decides to continue. Eli is rezzed for free by Architects of Tomorrow's ability. Surveyor is revealed. God of War is boosted and used to break Surveyor. Now, once she gets into the server, it's revealed that the card in there is Spin Doctor and Embolus. Embolus is trashed for 2. Alice accesses Spin Doctor and also trashes it for 2. And the corp has to trash one of the pieces of ice that were rezzed that run. Oh no, it looks like the runner gets to choose. It says when the run ends, trash 1 piece. It doesn't say the corp trashes it. So Alice chooses trash Onsel. The corp responds by putting another card in server 1, advancing it 1 time, and then putting a new piece of ice in front of that server. And as cool as this Alice Merchant deck started out, I think Alice is kind of done. Like, I think she's out. She's only got 5 credits. God of War is extremely expensive to boost, which explains why she has this leech installed. The leech, definitely there to try to get virus tokens so that you can lower ice strength instead of having to boost it. But here's the problem. The corp scored a 2nd copy of Cyberdeck Sandbox, which means they're going to gain 8 credits off the triggered virus purge. Not to mention the fact that Leech loses its counters, God of War loses its counters, Alice still taking tags here, still trying desperately to make something happen, goes into archives. But this is kind of a problem because even though she clicks through archives, she passes Eli, triggering Architects of Tomorrow's ability again, allowing Architects of Tomorrow to res Fairchild for a meager 5 credits. 4 credit discount is just huge. Now, it's all good that Alice got some money off the Dirty Laundry run, but I think this game is pretty much over. At any point, if the corp decides they want to purge virus counters, they can do so, and make 8 credits at the same time. They also have 2 tokens on Project Vitruvius. They have a card in server 1 with an advancement token on it. They have another piece of ice protecting archives. Alice is trying to make something happen here. She goes in to the remote server one more time with another run amok card. The corp decides not to res the outermost piece of ice, so Alice must now encounter the surveyor, uses leech to drop its strength by 1, pays to boost God of War the rest of the way. Turns out the card in server 1 was just an NGO front, not what Alice wanted to see. So the corp makes money. Alice doesn't really get anything off of that. And here we go. We now have another card in server 1, and if it is an agenda at all, and Alice doesn't get in there and steal it, the corp is won. Alice triple clicks for credits and then plays Bravado into HQ. This isn't the worst plan ever if she thinks the card in server 1 is not an agenda. If she's calling that bluff and she's deciding, you know what, I'm going into HQ, I'm going to ignore that card, this is not the worst plan ever. The card in front of HQ is revealed to be a surveyor. Of course, she can break that with God of War. She decides to let the trace fire. Okay. Probably because Surveyor gives you a tag. 2 tags, actually. And Alice doesn't care if she takes tags. And I believe Bravado still gives you money, even if you don't pass the ice. So yeah, she was like, okay, just give me more tags. I'll still get the Bravado money. It's okay. It's not a big deal. And, you know, I'll move on with my life. The corp purged virus tokens. Oh, wait, no, they undid their click. Okay, they did not purge virus tokens. Instead, they install a Jinja City grid on HQ, which is curious. Why HQ? They draw. Maybe they didn't draw any ice because they didn't use Jinja to install anything. The runner draws and sure gambles. The corp uses Jinja to install Drafter in front of HQ, and then sweeps virus counters, which resets Leech, resets God of War, and earns them 8 credits. Very understandable why they would want to do that. On their following turn, they double install in server 1, probably hoping that the cards they have there are enough to keep the runner out. The runner just draws, which is very strange. Makes you wonder what's in their hand. They really need draw, like they need draw cards. I don't know what they're doing. They just drew a bunch more cards here. But it doesn't seem to be hurting them because the corp is not installing agendas in server 1. They installed Rashida, and they pop Rashida to reveal even more ice. They've Jinja'd extra ice in front of HQ and the remote. They put another piece of ice to protect R&D, and they put a mystery card in server 1. If I didn't know better, I'd almost say the corp is playing with its food here, because all the corp needs to do is score 1 agenda to win. But then again, Alice does have 17 credits. I mean, it's possible she could still get into server 1, but the last 3 turns, she's done nothing but draw cards manually. And you have to wonder why. First off, why doesn't her deck have draw in it? Why doesn't she have Earthrise Hotel or Diesel or VRcation or just any of them. Well, and I'm naming things outside of Anarch. She could also use moshing. I've had worse. Wildcat Strike. All of those seem like very valid options for draw. And we're not seeing any of them. For the past several turns, all she's done is manually draw. Oh my goodness, counter surveillance. Counter surveillance just got used. I thought they banned this card. Okay, so you make a run. If successful, instead of accessing cards, pay X credits to access up to X cards from that server. If able, X is... What? Why? What? Why did she counter surveillance the remote? Pay X cards, access up to X cards from the... What? This is... Counter surveillance is the kind of thing you use on R&D. Why did she counter surveillance... Oh, she didn't use counter surveillance. She used isolation. She installed counter surveillance and then immediately trashed it with isolation. Okay. It makes way more sense. Anyway, she was trying to build up a bunch of money, essentially, in order to get here into server 1, which is why she used isolation. We've reached the final surveyor. It has way too much strength for Alice to be able to actually break. She fights the trace on the end the run trace by paying 8 credits to boost. And right when she thinks she's going to get in, Managarm Skunkworks is revealed. She can't access that card in that server because of Managarm Skunkworks. And yeah, the corp just scores out the advanced concept topper. That was a really neat idea in deck format. I need to check my runner cards because I thought they got rid of counter surveillance. No, it's not banned. That's a totally legal card. I thought it rotated or got banned, or no, it's very legal. Okay, so yeah, interestingly enough, I wonder if Alice shouldn't have let's see. Run any server. If successful, instead of breaching the attack server, pay X credits if able, where X is equal to the number of tags you have. If you do, choose a number less than or equal to X. Access that many cards in the server. So I think the idea is you take a bunch of tags, you make a bunch of money, you play counter surveillance, hit R&D, and sweep like 20 cards. But you have to be able to get into R&D and still have 20 credits and 20 cards. Yeah, I don't know. And doesn't this strategy just immediately fold if they have closed accounts? Like, pretty sure closed accounts is still... Oh, wait, it's not. It's in the... No, wait. Standard card... Well, standard ban list legal? But it's not in the standard card pool? 21.0. What are we on now? 21.10. What does it mean if it's not legal in the standard card pool, but it's legal in the standard ban list? I think that just means that it's not banned, but it's not part of the game anymore. Okay, well, then if closed accounts isn't in the game anymore, I guess you don't immediately lose if somebody plays that card. But I was gonna go to bed, but there's an Adam game. Okay, last game. I have to watch the Adam game. And they use Smartware Distributor. I like this Adam player already. You definitely want to use Smartware Distributor in Adam. I mean, not really, but you don't have to, but I think it's a very good card in Adam decks. Anyway, so we have Adam running the Adam versus tough matchup against Acme. Adam running, of course, the proper objectives. Interestingly, that they have on the lamb in order to avoid tags. That's not a bad card in general if you're looking for tag protection, but it's a little expensive at 3 credits. And one of the biggest struggles that Adam has is he needs like to snowball early. So he needs like, and if he doesn't snowball early, he struggles sometimes to accumulate the credits he needs to do anything, which is one of the reasons why I like Smartware Distributor, because the entry fee for Smartware Distributor is so low. It's 0 credits plus a click, and then you just start getting money off of it. But yeah, On the Lamb is 3 credits. It's not cheap for an early Adam to play, but he seems like he's done it. He's got 12 credits. He's coming in here with the Mad Dash. Hits a free to play. Looks like, how did he get through? Oh, he logic bombed free to play, hits IP block, trashes that, or not trashes, but breaks that with paperclip, and turns out he guessed correctly. I don't know how he guessed that. Unless, well, no, because there's quite a few cards in HQ. Presumably he might have seen this agenda before using Find the Truth. But to boldly use Mad Dash, to boldly be so confident to be like, no, I know that's an agenda, and I know I can get in there. Admittedly, though, he had Logic Bomb, so he knew he could get through this piece of ice, and he already had the paperclip for IP block, so that's probably fine. But yeah, so he scores himself, not only does he score himself a Bologna, but an extra point here. So he's up to 5 points. He's pretty much on game point. The only thing that won't win him the game are the quantum predictive models. The Corp in response reses a Spin Doctor and double installs cards in server 1. They're down to 6 credits, the runner's down to 6 credits, but Adam has his brain chip installed, which means his hand size is huge. What are we looking at hand size here? He's got 5 agenda points, so his hand size is 8. He's drawing cards for free every turn. He feels comfortable enough to start setting up here. He drops Daily Cast, drops a Ms. Bones. Turns out the card in server 1 was just a Rashida. And Acme needs to make something happen. They need to install a piece of ice here on the outside. That, yeah, I don't know. Free to play is okay. Free to play has this weird ability where you as the runner can spend two credits to break any of the subroutines. You can't do that if you're tagged. And because of Acme's ability, it treats the runner as if they are tagged on the outermost piece of ice, even if they aren't tagged. So you shut down the ability of the runner to use that ability. But if Adam has another Logic Bomb, he can definitely get in here. Admittedly, though, he's only got these 2 cards. And technically, because of find the truth, he has to reveal every card he draws. So the Corp very well may know that Adam doesn't have his Sentry Breaker. But there it is. Adam draws a card. It's a Logic Bomb. Technically, he can put this Logic Bomb down. Logic Bomb through Free to Play, Paperclip through IP Block, and if this is an agenda, he wins the game. He has installed his Logic Bomb, and yep, he's going right into that server with an Overclock. Just like we said, he's going to Logic Bomb. Yeah, Logic Bomb's the Free to Play, hits the IP Block, is going to break that with Paperclip, pretty much for free because of the Overclock money. Now at this point, if the Corp has installed an agenda in server 1, Adam has won. Unless, again, it's a quantum predictive model. Oh, Biovault? Okay. Turned out the double advance card was not an agenda. It was actually a Biovault, which is going to end the run, forcing Adam out. And now he used a Logic Bomb for a run that didn't get him in. The Corp drops another card in server 1 and double advances it. Adam decides to completely ignore that and goes into HQ. Now he has neutralize all threats, which means he's going to actually access 2 extra cards. Sorry, not 2 extra cards, but an extra card. Turns out it didn't matter because the first card he accesses here is Send a Message. And that's going to be game. Unfortunately, the Corp does say that they were just swimming in agendas this game, and that does happen sometimes as Corp. There's just nothing you can do about it. It's a bad circumstance to be in against Adam because he's one of those runners where if he gets his foot in the door, it's really hard to keep him out. If you shut down Adam at the very beginning of the game, it's extremely hard for him to catch back up because his hand size is so low at 3, and it's very difficult for him to take advantage of his directives if his hand size is low, because he needs an open slot in his hand size in order to get the free draw. Obviously, the more cards in hand, the more likely he's going to have economy. And if he doesn't have economy because he doesn't have cards in hand, he's forced to trash things with neutralize all threats, which means it's hard for him to keep his money up, which means it's hard in general to do anything. But if he gets agendas early, his brain chip gives him increased hand size. He starts drawing cards for free. He sees what's on R&D every time he runs, like for free. He just gets to look at R&D. He's extremely powerful, but he's very, very weak at the very beginning of the game, and the Corp just wasn't able to take advantage of that. Anyway, I think that's all for Netrunner tonight. If you've made it this far, I appreciate you taking the time to hang out with some total rando online talking about Netrunner for 3 hours. If you are watching this on YouTube and you feel like hanging with me live and you're super bored and have the time to do it, feel free to check me out at Twitch Chesney. Otherwise, if you're watching this on Twitch, you can see all the videos archived at YouTube at Chesney 2004. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Hope you have a great evening or morning or wherever you are, and I'll see you in the next one.